So my first teaching experience, we have to go back to around 1992, and I was an adjunct member of staff in the Department of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering at a university in the UK, and I was teaching study skills to engineering students. So what I was doing in those classes was trying to make students aware of the way in which they were approaching their studies, the intentions that they were having towards the materials that they were learning. It was part of a kind of experimental approach that that department was running in trying to improve the study skills of its students. The department was actually taking a deficit approach. It assumed that there was something wrong with the students and could I fix it, please? So it was an interesting experience culturally in as much as I was working with the faculty administrators and teachers and so on to get them to think about what they were doing. But I was also working with students to see if I could get them to reflect on the way in which they were learning. When I started teaching subject areas, which was often in the area of kind of critical studies and the history of art and design, that kind of thing, I did what many teachers do. I would put together a slide pack, a lot of it with text, and I would be determined to get through that kind of pack over the hour or whatever it was that I had to lecture. I quickly moved away from that kind of approach, and I think found a style that was more natural to me, which was about a kind of much more dialectic approach, having a conversation with whoever was in the classroom at the time. Anything that really, if you like, activates the learners. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for discussion, noise, arguments between each other in the class. I think that for me is teaching. You've got to be interested in teaching. You've got to be interested not only in the craft of teaching, the stuff that you do in the classroom perhaps, but also teaching in its broadest sense. You know, the way in which you construct the curriculum, the way in which you construct the learning activities, the assessments, the activities that you do in class. I think all of those things are important for an individual. But I also strongly believe that teaching is a collegial activity. It is, or it should be, in most universities. So one of the primary characteristics, I think, of an effective teacher is a willingness to share teaching practice and to talk about teaching experiences with other teachers. We're now going to go back to high school, effectively the equivalent of high school, and it was my design and technology teacher, a chap called Gary Stamper, and he was probably the most inspirational teacher I've ever had, in a very quiet and understated way. I think he took a great deal of interest and personal pride in his students. He made an effort to understand what motivated those students as individuals, and he stretched us way beyond, I think, what a normal teacher at those kind of levels would do. He trusted us, I think, to be able to give us a level of instruction, reading, activities that really pushed us to our boundaries. And indeed, when I got a grade A, the highest you could get in that subject, where I failed the others that I was taking, he said, "You could have done better." At its essence, for me, teaching is about promoting learning in students. Now, obviously that can range across a variety of qualitatively different things. At one end, that might actually mean giving instruction. But at the other end of the scale is the idea that we need to provide facilitative activities for students. We need to be able to, particularly in the classroom, get them to do a variety of things that leads them to realising learning on their own terms. Which means as a teacher, you've really got to think about, I think, you've really got to think about teaching as being a kind of a research-like activity. It's the way in which you kind of bring your learners along with you on a kind of journey that says, isn't this stuff interesting? But you don't need me to find out about that. Yeah, this is where you need to look. And of course you want to look there because it's a really exciting place to look. So teaching for me is that kind of, on the one hand it's a kind of research-like, scholar-like activity. On the other hand it's a kind of motivational kind of thing. You know, it's about encouraging your learners to want to and to be excited about the things that they are that they're investigating. If you're going to improve teaching, you've got to change the concepts that you have of what teaching is. You've got to come to some kind of realization about what you believe teaching to be. If you believe that teaching is about the conveyance of simple conveyance of information, you need to get out of that kind of position. You need to start thinking about teaching as a professional activity that has a number of skills, values, outlooks that go with that. Now, where can you learn those kind of things from? You can read about them. You can read about the experiences of other teachers. You can watch other teachers in action. At the classroom level, enjoy it, be enthusiastic, realise that it isn't always going to go your way, learn from your mistakes. But in the bigger context, be part of a teaching team. Get yourself involved in the departments, in the faculty, in committees. Be part of the fabric of the teaching context in whatever institution it is that you're working at. Teaching is never for me, it's never a lone activity. Unless I'm teaching, my son, how to plane a piece of wood or to hammer in a nail. But I think in the kind of business that we're in, where students are engaging with a broad range of activities, subjects, over a long period of time, then I think for me, teaching is all about working with other people, be those the students, the other staff that you're working with, the professional staff that you're working with. We're all in it together, and that's the attitude you've got to have.